Welcome back to episode 12 of the Be Kind, Be Happy podcast. Today's episode, we're finishing our three-part series on the three acts of goodness, TAG. Today, we're going to talk about thinking good thoughts and the importance of keeping a positive mental state.
Hope you like this episode on Think Good Thoughts. As always, let's begin with 3 deep breaths together to synchronize our minds and to enter a relaxed state. So closing the eyes, back straight, taking 1 deep breath in, and then breathing out entirely. Second breath in. Second breath out. Final breath in, fill up the lungs. And then exhale completely. Relax the mind and body. Okay, let's begin the podcast on Think Good Thoughts.
All right, welcome back, everyone. How was your week, Byron?
Good week. Been thinking a lot about this podcast, thinking about how to think good thoughts, how to deliver this podcast in the most effective way to end the 3-part series. So very excited. How was your week, Leigh?
Oh, mine was a good week, man. I just finished week 2 of Teachers College.
Yeah.
It was tough though. Like they overwhelm you with little assignments. You know, like they're somewhat tedious. But I've just kept the same mindset. Like I have to do it, and better to do it now than later. So I've been trying to do everything like as it comes, like same day, and so that's kind of kept the workload down.
Yeah.
But so I'm really excited to learn today more about Buddhism and more about your master's philosophies, and because I'm trying to apply it, you know, each week I'm trying to apply things a little bit more in my life. So to get into thinking good thoughts, like what's the first step that you want to talk about?
Yeah. So I guess this ends the 3-part series on the 3 acts of goodness. And so Think Good Thoughts is said to be the hardest of the 3 parts, because we see it as do good deeds is the easiest part. It's like the beginner's level. Speak good words becomes a bit harder. Then Think Good Thoughts is what makes everything more powerful, because when we can think good thoughts, our deeds become better, our speech becomes better, and of course our life becomes better. When we think good thoughts, it's so important because our thoughts shape our reality, and our thoughts shape the story we tell ourselves and the story we live in. And so having a mind that is always thinking good, positive, healthy thoughts is the best thing we can do for ourselves and for other people. And so when we think good thoughts, there's 3 main things that we have to focus on. The first thing is to get rid of the negative thoughts. And the negative thoughts are the self-defeating thoughts that's directed towards ourselves. Then get rid of all the complaining and blaming that's directed externally. That's the first step. The second step is to have a strong mind, a strong, silent, cultivated mind. And that's usually through meditation and mindfulness. And then the third step is to fill the mind with all the good stuff. And this is the segment, the part that I really want to get into. I'm really excited about, because it talks about the 4 immeasurable states that the Buddha expounded before his death 2,600 years ago.
So Byron, you said a lot there, and I was just hoping we could go touch into the first step, which is freeing yourself from negative, sometimes self-defeating thoughts. So what would be some advice you'd have for that?
Yeah, because I think in order to get to the second and the third stage of thinking good thoughts, it's so important to first develop a good, strong foundation. And a strong foundation comes with a mind that's not always inflicting pain on itself and other people. And so we have to get rid of all the self-defeating negative thoughts that's directed inwards, but also the constant blaming and complaining and not taking accountability and responsibility for the things that's happening in our lives. That's directed externally. And so it's so important to be mindful of the thoughts, the habits, the mental states that we are experiencing on an everyday basis, so that we know what are the languages that we speak to ourselves, and what are the things that we are always discontent with, that we blame and complain externally. So the first part is to be mindful. Then the second part is that when we can see that these thoughts are arising, to just nip it in the bud, so that we don't fuel it and we don't make it perpetuate. We can return to our inner silence. We can return to our breath, return to a mantra, and this is where the habit of meditation really comes into play. If we don't have the habit of meditation, I think it's important to at least divert our attention somewhere more positive. So replacing a negative thought with a positive one. One more thing about negative thoughts is that when we have a self-defeating thought, we should flip the thought around and ask ourselves the opposite. So if we say something like, man, I'm not good enough today, then if I flip that around and say, man, I am good enough today, then ask myself, are there evidences and proof on me being good enough? Are there proof and evidence on me being not good enough? Usually, when we have a self-defeating thought, we only have one or two key reasons why we think that way. But if we flip that idea around and say, I am good enough today, or I am a good person, we would usually be able to list so many more things that are evidence of us being good people. But we are just allowing the one or two negative things that are on our mind immediately dictate our entire position on whether or not we are a good or a bad person, or anything for that matter. And so my point is, when we have a self-defeating thought, it's very useful to flip that self-defeating thought into a positive way, and then ask ourselves to back it up with all the proof and evidence we have in our everyday lives.
And I think I like that. And I think that the other thing you can do too, though, is like you can do the other acts of goodness. So it's like, if you're feeling down, man, like just you could try and do a good deed, you know? And that might give you some little bit of positivity. And then you could also try and, a good deed could be speaking good words, like complimenting other people. And then, I mean, likely it will come back towards you, and then maybe it will boost your own energy up. The other thing you can do too when you're not thinking good thoughts is you can just take one deep breath. Just one deep breath, ground yourself, maybe just stop all thoughts, right? Just like you can stop all speech, you can stop all thoughts, you can just relax, and then you can go into whatever you need to go into. Speaking from personal experience, my brain is like, if I let it go, it's like, whether that's positive or negative, it's still running at this like crazy high trajectory. It's like high RPMs, you know? And so stopping it doesn't necessarily mean that everything's gonna be positive from here on out, but it stops it. And then it takes a little bit of time to get the momentum back up, right? So that sometimes is a very helpful tool that I've used personally.
Yeah, Leigh, like just to build on what you're saying, I think it's so important that when we're having a bad day or having like bad thoughts, it's so useful, and we learn that a lot, to just start the positive cycle up from either of the three branches. We can do a good deed, think a good thought, or say a good word like thank you, or say a good word like, you know, like, hey, how's it going, or good job, you know, like just anything. And it's just gonna start that positive spiral of good deeds, good thoughts, good actions, good speech, and it's gonna be a positive cycle. Not only does it nip the negative cycle in the bud, but then you're creating a catalyst for a positive cycle that just lifts your entire energy upwards. It always just starts with that one good deed, one good speech, or one good thought to change the whole energy of everything.
So I'd like you to kind of educate me more on the Buddhist aspect of this, Byron. Like you mentioned earlier, the 4 immeasurable states. I think you could elaborate on that a little bit more.
Yeah, and this is such a powerful sutra in the Buddhist teachings, because this is when the Buddha was on the verge of dying, and he was letting it be known to his disciples that he was not going to be on earth for much longer. And the monks were saying, when you're gone, then where do we take refuge in? Who do we rely on, and where do we depend on, you know? And the Buddha said, don't rely or depend on anything external, but be the light unto yourself. And he said that your mind should be abiding on the 4 immeasurable states, which are equanimity, joy, compassion, and love. And he says that these are the 4 immeasurable states because there are no upper limit to how high you can cultivate these energies, because you can keep going higher and higher and higher, and it just leads to a lot of joy, happiness, fulfillment, and all the good stuff in life. But it's a good source of refuge because you learn so much from there, and that is the states that you can abide in until you attain perfect enlightenment.
Beautiful. So what is equanimity?
Yeah, so equanimity is the ability to remain balanced-minded regardless of all the good or bad things that happen in life. So usually we have a mind that always craves the good things, and the mind that always has aversion towards the bad, the negative things. And having an equanimous mind means that the mind is strong, it's stable, it's unmoving. And that's a mind that we can rely on. That's a mind that we can use as a good base to do things on. And just to build on that, so an equanimous mind is one that is tolerant, one that is patient, one that is enduring, and one that is soft and flexible. So not a mind that's hard and rigid and inflexible and closed-minded. It's a very open, gentle, soft mind.
I mean, that would help you with everything in life, all of life's challenges, if you work towards having a mind that way. And what was the second one?
Yes, the second one and the third one, they go together in a sense, because joy and compassion is differentiated in Buddhism because joy is the act of giving others happiness. So things that we do that instill others with faith and confidence and joy and, you know, all the good stuff. Whereas compassion is the level higher, where we have the ability to alleviate the people around's suffering. So taking away their anxiety, taking away their stress and all the negative states. And so we can be like a healer in that sense, because we can see where people are suffering, see where people are having like bad experiences, and then we are alleviating that from them. And that is the quality of compassion. So joy and compassion, one is giving others happiness and joy, and then one is alleviating their suffering and pain.
I love that. That's so important too, right? And the final state's love.
Yes.
Correct?
And love is the highest state. It's the state where one feels unity, complete unity with all external phenomena. So one feels that the sense of self is expanded to the point that it encompasses the 10 directions. It encompasses the entire universe, so that there is no sense of self and other. There is no sense of me and I in a small sense, but everything has unified, and that sense of unity is love. And I just want to say that the 4 states, being equanimity, joy, compassion, and love, can be directed internally. So giving yourself comfort, or alleviating your own suffering, or being equanimous with your own emotional states. But you can also direct them externally. So being patient with people that are causing you stress externally, or alleviating suffering externally. So the 4 immeasurable states are directed internally or externally, and this is how we can have a positive mind that is constantly thinking good thoughts, thinking happy thoughts, and always basing in a positive, highly elevated mental state.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's like there's no limit to any of these things. So that's why it's so interesting. And it's like everything comes from within.
Yeah.
So you have that realization yourself, and you want to live a better life for yourself. Well, what we both believe and what you're teaching us is the best way to do that is to also be helpful to other people. And in the process, you're going to love yourself more and be kinder to yourself more. When you're lacking that kindness to yourself, be kind to people.
Yes.
And when you're being kind to people, love yourself. It's a cycle of wholesome energy. That's the Buddhist way, is it?
Yeah, because when we are nice to someone else, we are creating that kindness from within that we have in our arsenal, you know. You can't be kind to someone when you don't have it from within. So everything that you treat others with is generated internally. And once it's generated internally, then you have it forever. So when we are kind to others, we are kind to ourselves because we are creating that kindness. But it works the other way. If we are angry with other people, if we are hateful and jealous or arrogant or all the negative states, then we are creating for ourselves, then we have it as well. So what we want to try and do is be kind to others, because it's actually being kind to ourselves as well. And this is where the unity of self and other comes into play. Because when we are kind, the object is not really as important, because kindness will always be experienced externally and internally. And the same applies for all states, all negative and positive states. When we are hateful, we feel it, other people feel it. When we are happy, we feel it, other people feel it. You know, every state is felt everywhere.
So we can expand this, and I think I mentioned it earlier. The topic was think good thoughts, but it's bigger than that, right? It's maintain a positive outlook on life. It's oneness and compassion and kindness. It's everything, and that's why it's the third stage, right, or the third act of goodness, because the other ones help build the third one. And they're all together, but the third one, thinking good thoughts, is like the air we breathe, you know? Everything, our reality, everything is all comes down to thinking good thoughts. We can make this life so beautiful. I think it's time we summarize the 3 acts of goodness and then follow to wrapping it up. But so how would you summarize the 3 acts of goodness to someone who's just listening to this segment right now?
I think it's so important to practice the 3 acts of goodness together. So it's not like we are doing only good deeds first and then saving the speech to later. But we should do it all hand in hand with each other, because they all fuel each other, as you mentioned before. When we think good thoughts, our deeds become more powerful, our speech becomes more compassionate. And the beauty of the 3 acts of goodness is that this is purely an internal journey. It's nothing that requires anything from the outside. It's all cultivated from within. So we just have to monitor our speech, monitor our actions, monitor our thoughts. We are in complete control of this spiritual journey. We are in complete control of this path. And another beauty about this practice is that we can cultivate good deeds in whatever way we wish. We can do anything as long as it's a good deed. You know, there's no limit or restriction to what type of deed we do or how we do it. We have complete freedom to practice the 3 acts of goodness. We can do it in our own way. We can do it in a way that challenges us, that we're curious about. And so the 3 acts of goodness gives us so much freedom to cultivate this holistic practice in our everyday life. And the reason why we practice this in our everyday life is why it's part of humanistic Buddhism, because it's not a branch of Buddhism that is only practiced by monks, but also by lay people like ourselves. We can do good deeds, speak good words, and think good thoughts at work, with our family, with our friends, at parties, you know, at home. We can do this everywhere and anywhere, and this is the beauty of humanistic Buddhism, but also the beauty of the 3 acts of goodness. So Leigh, the 3 acts of goodness is something that we practice and we learn about so attentively when I was a Buddhist monk in Guangshan, because this is pretty much the pillar of humanistic Buddhism. Everything we do, we are always thinking. We are pretty much obsessed with thinking good thoughts, doing good deeds, and speaking good words. And since I've left the monastery 2 years ago now, almost, I've been thinking about this every day and trying to refine my intention and trying to better myself in every aspect of the 3 acts of goodness. And so my question to you, Leigh, is, since you've heard this for the past few weeks, what impressions have the 3 acts of goodness left on you, and what are your thoughts and feelings of TAG, the 3 acts of goodness?
Thanks for your question, Byron. Over the last 12 weeks, I've learned so much, and probably the most incredible thing is how much I've learned about myself.
Nice.
Once I started putting that work in, then I started receiving so much information internally. Because you talk about, with TAG, you were talking about a lot of observing your thoughts, observing your words, observing your deeds, right? Observing what do you do? How often are you doing things for people? And so I've been observing, right? And I think there's been so much room for growth in all areas. And that's why I think it's so interesting, because if you want to make a change, you start by observing, and there's like a clear-cut framework here to change your reality. You know, make your reality a more happy place. And then it fits in like you have to make a life commitment with anything you do. But you could start with making like a 1-year commitment. And you and I were talking earlier off the podcast about how incredible it is in 1 year what you can do in your life. You can change your entire body physically. You can gain weight, you can lose weight, but you can change your entire mind. You can change your entire reality. So in 1 year, a 1-year commitment, you can change everything you know about yourself. You know, you can believe that you are good enough. You are enough for anything and anyone. You really can. And so I just think like the energy here from you and this energy was passed down to you from wherever you learned your things. And together we've collaborated and really worked on this, and it's been really sweet, you know. Nice. So my thoughts are, I'm going to do more good deeds. I'm going to speak more good words, and I'm going to think more good thoughts. And again, I'm going to make this my reality. There's no more game. Last week I said not a game, my game, no game. It's just me. It's just my reality. And I look forward to the next 12 weeks.
Yeah, nice. Well, dude, very well said. Very emotional, because I can feel the sincerity in your voice, and I believe you.
All right, and so Byron, do you have any final remarks before we end this?
Yeah, I just want to say that, like, to cultivate the 3 acts of goodness in line with the Buddha Dharma to the point that makes it very effective in our lives, it's so important that we align these 3 energies, our actions, our speech, and our thoughts, in line with our life intentions, so that everything that we say, we do, and we think, the energy is directed towards one direction, as opposed to having all the 3 energies dispersed in different directions. So if we are able to align these 3 energies with our intention in life, then whatever we strive for, we will achieve with so much more effectiveness, because this is the beauty of the Buddha Dharma. This is the beauty of the 3 acts of goodness. Just having all the energies aligned in our lives. That's how we make the most of this practice.
Thanks everyone for listening to our 3-part series on the 3 acts of goodness. Next week, stay tuned for something new.
Yeah, we really hope you like this 3-part series, and if you really enjoyed it, please let us know. And if you have any other ideas that you want us to explore or delve deeper into, please let us know as well, and then we'll see if we can make it another episode. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. See you again next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks again.